Hi, this is Mr. Praisewater, and I get to talk to you about the ACT math test. I apologize you can't see me. My webcam isn't currently recognizing itself. So we'll get through this though. So the test, first thing, it is 60 questions and 60 minutes. So if you do the math, you may think, well, I have a minute per question. And actually, for almost everyone, that's not the strategy or approach you want to take. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But you can use a calculator on the test. TI-84 Plus is probably recommended. That's probably your best bet. However, at this point, I would just use whatever calculator you're comfortable with whichever one you use every day in your math class. Use that one on the test. So the big question, how do I score the highest I can on the ACT math test? And that's what we want you to do. We want you to score as high as you possibly can. Do the best that you can do. And to do that, you simply cannot make mistakes. So if you don't make mistakes, you'll score the best you can. And that seems like a simple fix, but that's the reality of the math test. The math test is a little unique when compared to science and English and reading, in that a math question you may look at, know how to do, but still get the question wrong. Because maybe you miss a negative sign, or maybe you multiply two numbers when you're trying to add them together, or maybe you add instead of subtract. All these common mistakes we make on math questions that we know how to do, we have to eliminate those. So that means to do the best you can on the math test, you have to double check your work. Every chance you get, double check your work. And we'll talk about some ways, or remind you of some ways to do that at the end of this short video here. But once again, the key to the math test is to not make mistakes. Every question you know how to answer, you have to get right. So spend time on questions you know how to do, spend extra time on them, checking your work, and you can afford to spend a little less time on questions that you don't know how to do. So depending on your score, you have different approaches. So if your goal score is 20 to 24, you're going to concentrate on 1 through 30. And in fact, to get into this range, you only need to find 20 questions that you absolutely know how to do on the test, and then you can guess on the rest, and with a little bit of luck, you will be in the 20, you'll score a 20 on the ACT. So you're going to concentrate on 1 through 30. And the reason you're going to concentrate on the first 30 is because those are the easiest questions. In the math test, the questions get harder as you go. So question 1 is a lot easier than question 60. And we're going to say choose wisely on 31 through 50. So you're going to try to answer those, but it's okay to skip some of those questions. If you don't know how to do it, you can skip it and move on. And then you're going to guess or use strategies that we'll kind of mention, and we've talked about it in your homerooms on the last 10 questions. You really don't have to answer the last 10 questions, or you don't have to spend any time on them. You want to bubble them in, and when you bubble in, or when you have to guess, just pick a letter and stick with that. Just pick C all the way down and stick with C. As you go up, if your goal score is 25 through 29, you're going to concentrate on 1 through 40. To get into this range, you have to get 30 questions that you know how to do, and then you can guess on the rest, and you can get in this range. And then you'll choose wisely on the next 10. And still, if you're in the 20s, you don't have to spend any time on those last 10 questions, because likely you'll miss them anyway. So just guess and spend more time checking your work on the front end of the test. And then if you're in the 30s, we'll kind of lump these two together. If you're in the 30s, you have to work quickly in the beginning, because the first 10 or 20 questions should be easy for you. You got to fly through those so you have time to work on the harder questions at the end of the test. A good time guideline is the question you are on 30 minutes into the test should be close to the score you want to get on the test. So if you want to get a 25 on the ACT, if that's a good goal for you, then 30 minutes in, you should be on about question 25. And even if you're working a little slower than that, that's probably okay. But if you're way past that, then you're working too fast. You need to spend more time double checking some of your work. And then this is just a general question approach. So as you tackle a question, the first thing is read it and think about it. And if you know what the question's asking for, then yes, you want to answer it. But if you don't know what the question's asking for, then just fill it in quickly and move on. And if you know how to solve it, then solve it. But be careful and check your work as you go. And if you don't know how to solve it, then try to use one of our guessing strategies that will help you come up with a better guess. And these are some of these strategies we've talked about during homerooms, but some things to remember when you take the test is the pictures are drawn to scale. You can double check equivalent to questions. You need to work backwards when possible and plug in numbers that you choose. So these three, the double check equivalent to questions, work backwards and plug in numbers. That's all just plugging in numbers to your calculator and checking your work when possible. If you have coordinate questions, plot them. And then remember that common mistakes are almost always answer choices. So if you just because the answer you get is there doesn't mean it's necessarily correct. If you get the right answer, you have to double check your work and make sure you didn't make a silly mistake. Because if you miss a negative sign, that's going to be an answer choice. And then that's probably the biggest thing I'd say. Common mistakes are almost always answer choices, so a reason to check your work. And then also pictures are drawn to scale. So if one side looks bigger or smaller than the other, it is. So use that to help you guess and narrow down some answer choices. And the last thing is just do not give up. The math test is 60 questions. It's an hour long. It's a long time. Don't give up. Use that whole hour checking your work and making sure you didn't make any mistakes, and you will do the best that you can do.